It is 03:00 hours. June 6th, 1944. Major Werner Plusket stands alone inside a cold concrete bunker, perched high above Omaha Beach. He commands the artillery of the 352nd Infantry Division. And for months he has done nothing but stare at the same black, empty horizon. Tonight, something is different. He cannot explain it, but the air itself feels wrong, heavy, waiting, like the sea is holding its breath. His orders are simple and absolute. If the Allies come, his guns must stop them on the sand. If the line breaks here, there is nothing left between the invaders and Paris. Nothing but roads dot at 01:00 hours. The phone rings. It is his regimental commander, calm, almost bored. Pluskat lowers the receiver and lifts his binoculars again. Nothing. Just waves rolling in from a fog he cannot see the end of. He hangs up. He returns to the scope. Somewhere below him, his gun crews sit beside 155mm cannons in reinforced concrete pits. Ammunition stacked in neat, deadly rows. Steel obstacles jut from the sand like the teeth of some sleeping animal. Mines wait beneath the surf. Everything has been prepared for this night for 2 years. And still, the waiting eats at him. Then, at 02:00, he hears it. A low mechanical growl, rolling across the water from the north. Aircraft engines, dozens, then hundreds. The growl swells into a roar that shakes the air itself. Pluskat rushes back to the observation slit. The northern sky ignites with streaks of light, and beneath them, pale shapes bloom open like flowers made of silk, parachutes, thousands of them, falling into the darkness behind his own lines. The alarm bell screams through the bunker. His gunners scramble to their positions. But the order from regiment is unmoved. Hold the beach. Always the beach. The paratroopers are already behind them, cutting telephone wires, seizing bridges, vanishing into hedgerows before a single shot can be fired at them. The invasion is unfolding somewhere he cannot reach. Dawn creeps in at 05:30. A pale, ashen light spreads slowly across the water, and Pluskat presses his eye back to the scope one final time. What he sees stops his heart. Ships, not dozens, not hundreds. The entire horizon, from one edge of his vision to the other, is consumed by an armada beyond anything in human memory. Battleships, cruisers, destroyers, transport vessels stacked in endless gray rows. Dark silhouettes against a lightning sky, stretching out until the ships themselves seem to blur into the horizon. His hand trembles as he lifts the phone. Impossible, his commander mutters through the static. It's impossible. Before another word can be spoken, the world tears open. The first Allied naval salvos scream overhead like freight trains ripped loose from their rails. The sound of the shells arrives a half-second before the shells themselves. They slam into the bluffs around him, and the earth convulses. Concrete dust rains down inside the bunker. The walls groan and shudder like something alive and dying. Fire. All guns fire. His 155mm cannons roar back, hurling shells toward a fleet that seems to absorb every strike without slowing. For every shell he sends out, 50 come back in return. The hillside around him erupts again and again in fountains of dirt. Splintered steel and pulverized stone dot at 06:30. The landing craft appear, hundreds of them, churning through the surf in tight, deliberate waves, bearing straight down on his sector of the beach. Concentrate fire. His battery commanders answer. The guns swing, tracking the approaching boats through drifting smoke. At 2,000 meters they open up. Shells splash white around the hulls, and one craft takes a direct hit, vanishing in an orange fireball. But there are too many. For every boat destroyed, 10 more grind forward through the wreckage. The craft strike the beach obstacles. Some detonate on the mines. Others hang crippled on steel hedgehogs. The ramps crash down, and American soldiers pour out into water up to their chests. The German MG-42, positions cut loose from the bluffs, at unmistakable, ripping snarl of automatic fire tearing along the waterline, forcing the first wave to scatter and dive behind whatever cover the beach offers. The surf turns red and churns with chaos. Still, they come. More landing craft grind onto the sand. Tanks push forward, some bog down instantly in the wet shingle. Others crawl on toward the sea wall. Engineers sprint forward under fire, dragging explosive charges to blast lanes through the obstacles. From Pluscat's remaining guns, heavy shells slam down onto the beach, throwing sand and metal skyward, shredding equipment and men in the same instant. A naval shell finds one of his artillery pieces directly. The position goes silent forever. The Americans are pinned behind the seawall, trapped in a killing ground of open sand. But the landing craft keep coming, wave after relentless wave, spilling fresh troops onto ground already soaked with the men who came before them. At 0730, Pluscat does the math in his head. How many shells remain? They've been firing for an hour straight. At this rate, they run dry in 30 minutes. He calls regiment again. No answer comes that makes any difference now. The Allied naval guns adjust their pattern. Less noise, far more precision. Spotters ashore and in the air are calling in exact coordinates, walking the impacts up the bluff toward his position with terrifying accuracy. Then the bunker takes a direct hit. The scope shatters. The world outside disappears in a white flash. Pluscat is thrown to the floor, ears ringing, lungs full of dust. He lifts his head to see a fresh crack splitting open across the ceiling. The concrete, the thing that was supposed to save him, is beginning to give way. 2 guns left. Fewer than 40 shells between them. By 0800, the Americans begin to move. Small groups break from the seawall in short, desperate rushes up through the draws cut into the bluff. Defensive fire cuts several of them down, but others make it through, working forward with grenades and satchel charges, silencing one German strongpoint after another. The radio crackles once more, then dies into silence. A runner bursts into the shelter, breathless, face streaked with dust and blood. There is no order to withdraw, because there is nowhere left to withdraw to. The roads are cut. The escape routes are held by the enemy. What remains of Pluscat's command can only fall back into an ever-shrinking pocket of broken ground. At 0845, his final 2 guns fall silent. Out of ammunition. Out of options. Pluscat stares down at the shoreline through the broken slit in the wall. It is filled with movement now. Men, vehicles, equipment pressing forward in a continuous, unbroken tide. Heavy trucks crawl up the slopes through gaps that used to be defended lines. The ground he was ordered to hold at any cost has become the enemy's foothold into France. The invasion has succeeded. At the base of the bluff, medics move through the wreckage and the smoke. German and American wounded lie side by side in the sand, the difference in uniform meaning nothing anymore. Behind them, the sea itself seems to be emptying onto the beach, an endless column of vehicles and supplies pushing inland without pause, without hesitation, without end. The Atlantic Wall, 2 years in the building, the pride of Hitler's Western defense, has fallen in a single. Morning. Werner, Pluscat's account of watching the Allied fleet materialize out of the dawn fog became one of the most haunting German testimonies of the entire war. The 352nd Infantry Division, the very unit tasked with holding Omaha Beach, suffered catastrophic losses. More than 1,200 men killed, wounded, or captured in the first 12 hours alone. Despite inflicting some of the heaviest casualties of the entire invasion on the American forces, The German defenders were ultimately overwhelmed by sheer scale and firepower. Plusquet survived the war. Decades later, his testimony would be immortalized in Cornelius Ryan's landmark book The Longest Day. Until his death, he maintained that the instant he saw the Allied Armada stretching across the horizon at dawn, he knew, with total, sickening certainty, that Germany had already lost the war. The defense of Omaha Beach would go down as Germany's single most effective resistance on D-Day, but it was never going to be enough.